Welcome to Coffee with the Risk Manager, where we share a cup of coffee with colleagues and discuss all things risk management in higher education. I'm Stacy Kroll, Managing Director for Gallagher's Higher Education Practice, and with me today is Sam Florio, AVP for Auxiliary Services at Santa Clara University. And Sam's with us today to share some insights and just good tips and tricks of how to help our experiential learning program folks and essentially getting to yes. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Sam, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Stacy, thank you so much for letting me be part of this great program, Coffee with Risk Manager. There's been great people that have done it, so I'm just lucky to be able to be part of this. Thank you for asking me, and
Absolutely.
it's great that I was able to say yes. So I've been at Santa Clara for about 15, 16 years. My prior work at Santa Clara was as Director of Risk Management and Compliance. I did that for probably the last 16 years. The last 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to be asked to be Associate VP for Auxiliary Services. Risk management will still be part of my portfolio, so I'll still be working with people like Stacy and others in what we're doing. But it's been great. I'm a double graduate of Santa Clara, both law and undergrad, and I love the university. I'm so happy to be part of this university. It's a great place to be.
Great. Let me see your coffee cup. You haven't shown us what you're drinking out of today.
Yes, this is my Coach Sam cup. This is another part of my life. Coached my kids for years. Now I'm sort of retired from coaching because they're older, but this is one of my coach's gifts, so I love to use this cup.
I love that. So I found a mug, but it's pretty fitting for, first of all, this series, but also this episode. It says, "No risk, no magic." And that feels like the perfect mug to be talking about experiential learning, because that's where, right, students take that classroom knowledge and then put it out in the real world and have some practical applications. So experiential learning, particularly for an institution like Santa Clara, it's at the heart of what you do. So let's dive right in. So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that in experiential learning, it's often managed in a decentralized fashion. There's usually multiple folks throughout the institution kind of handling these community partner engagement. And also, it's led with a lens towards mission. It's led with a lens towards student development, community engagement, community giving back to your community. And often risk management sits on the back burner if it's even in the wheelhouse of the person who's running the program. So how did you approach experiential learning and kind of infuse some risk guidance in there? How did you started to tackle that, I'll say?
So we were lucky at Santa Clara in that we had a program where people were involved in community engagement in general, which was sort of outside the classroom. So I was able to sort of work with those folks to create a risk management program for that sort of department and what they were doing. And then a few years into my career at Santa Clara, we moved to a requirement for experiential learning, which included the classroom aspect. So there was an educational aspect as well as going out into the community to apply what you learned. So I was able to use that model that we created with the sort of the community engagement folks to include experiential learning. So it was easy for me to figure out to go to the folks that were sort of the go-to people for the faculty that were creating these experiential learning programs. Using the model that I had already created with the community engagement people, meaning, I went out to them, said, listen, I know you're doing some great things. When I was a student here, I was a student in Santa Clara too. When I was a student here, I was involved in going out into the community and doing these things. I want to make certain we do it and do it in a way that's safest for the university, safest for our students when they're out in the community, as well as protects the university in general. So I came to them and said, look, this is what we've got. We've got an agreement that we created to work with the community partner, whoever that might be. And that agreement had built-in standards, minimum insurance standards, requirements for the community partner to provide training for our folks. There were employment terminology included so that we made certain that our people weren't considered employees of that organization. And also, we would provide them with comfort that we had protection for our students and they're working for them from because it kind of gets amorphous with the workers' compensation piece. So we kind of had that all built into one contract affiliation agreement that the university would enter into with that third party to be able to go to move forward. So I came to them with that in hand. Literally, I'm holding my hands like this, literally with that in hand, and said, "Let's go. Let's make this work. I promise you, this will be easy to do."
Yeah, I heard a couple different things, right? I heard you went to them, right, which we hear all the time as advice is leave your office, go direct to the people who are working on campus. It's, that's how you foster those relationships. I heard you talk about alignment, right? So you aligned yourself with their focus, right? Their main priority is not risk management, but you led with kind of you understood the mission, you've participated in these programs, you believe in what they're trying to accomplish, you're not trying to derail them. And then I heard you already came with a solution in hand, which is awesome. You weren't asking them to develop the solution with you. You came already in hand with something that you could kind of plug and play, it sounds like, which is fantastic. So when you brought them the contract, right, and you said, now you have to go back to all your community partners and put this in place. How did you get them to do it? Because I imagine they must have balked, right? This is another administrative task. They're not contract managers. They don't know how to negotiate. They know how to put students in placements. So how'd you get them to kind of buy into the risk controls?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It wasn't easy because you're right. We were adding an administrative layer to them, and in an area that they were not comfortable with because this was new to them. They were just living their lives, doing their thing, and doing good, and going out. And I'm the one who's coming to put a barrier in that. So what I did was I knew that was going to happen. So we made certain that we made this contract as easy as possible. Super user friendly. It was a template that they could plug in. So, for example, if I was going to go work with a community organization, ABC community organization, was easy to say to write in ABC community organization whose mission is XYZ, all able to be written into the contract. That we utilize a Google platform here, so it was very easy for us to have those in contract form so that people can send them out. Also, we have an agreement for Adobe Sign and utilize Adobe, so we can create agreements in Adobe PDFs, so they're easily filled and signed and can move on. Other schools might be able to utilize DocuSign, something that we also have had experience with in the past. And then really was important is to let them know how and why it's important for me to make this as simple as possible. I knew that it was important for us to continue to do what we do. I want to be the department and office of yes, but I want to be the department of yes, but let's do it this way. So I knew that I needed to be able to sell it. And I sell it well and say, this is easy. It'll be one more step. To be perfectly frank, the community partners were already doing that with some of their other partners. So it wasn't like it was going to be super new to them. But if it was, we were able to have a good story to tell and explain to them, this is why we're doing it. We want to make sure to protect you, community partner. We want to protect our folks. And we want you to be able to utilize our students to the best of your ability to help support you in whatever you do.
Yeah. So here's another pain point. So let's say you've obviously gotten them to do the contracting, right? So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The next pain point that we always run into is insurance requirements. So when we're dealing particularly with community partners in trying to find placements that will most benefit our students, sometimes we're reaching out to organizations that don't have our minimum standards in place, right? Depending on the type of organization that we're contracting with. So how did you approach that at Santa Clara? Are you strict on your minimum standards for contracting? Do you have wiggle room? Kind of what's your guys' position on that? And how did you get your experiential learning partners on board?
That's great. Which, again, another pain point is a great term because it was a point of pain. I came from a place of trying to be very strict on insurance terms. I wanted to make certain if we were going bare before, I wanted to make certain that we had coverage going forward. And I knew it was going to be difficult. So what we did was is inevitable. We got we have been a mom and pop
Yeah.
nonprofit for years. We've never had anybody ask for insurance. Why do we need to do this? And I created and was able to tell a story to help them realize it's to protect them. Because when the lawsuit occurs, it's going to be ABC community organization and Santa Clara University being sued. So they want that protection. Um, Also, they didn't realize that oftentimes it could be pretty inexpensive to be able to get just a basic
Just a bot
business
policy. Yep.
practice
Yep.
for a nonprofit organization that's not going to break the bank. Even still, they would say, "We don't know where to go. We don't even know who to call. Do I call, State Farm?" And we would actually work with we had an opportunity to work with our broker who has a local partner to help nonprofits find affordable coverage. So we would give them the resources they would need to be able to find that broker, that insurance agent in some cases, to be able to provide them with the insurance terms they would need. There were times, I will say that, there are times where you get to a point where if it's literally the mom and pop, we worked out of a garage to be able to support this community and go out and hand out sandwiches out in local parks. We may be able to have a little bit of wiggle room there for some of those organizations. Then we would make certain that our indemnification language is super strong, limitation of liability language is super strong, and that the training requirements were very clear for the parties, so that we knew that what we were responsible for and what they were responsible for, so that contractually we might go have a little bit of that. That was very few and far between.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we've seen, I've seen from some of our clients, this trend of moving towards creating this almost triaged risk management plan for those folks who are managing experiential programs for that exact reason. So here's here's where we're going to be really strict, right? When you're partnering with a hospital or you're partnering with a large social care organization, you need to have these. But if you're doing mom and pop, or if this is the type of learning experience, we might have a little bit more flexibility. And documenting that right up front. So we've heard that, we've seen that, and each school, it's all dependent on your institutional risk appetite at the end of the day, right? So at the end of the day, if you want to partner with a community partner that doesn't have insurance, that's just an acceptance of risk for Santa Clara. So as long as everyone's kind of on that same page, we just need those standards to be articulated, again, to make it easy for the individual at Santa Clara who's running experiential programs.
Right.
And also make it a little easier on you, so not every request comes back to you for kind of letting go of those requirements.
It's a really fine line, though, because you got to make certain that you have to, because you're going to be working with the same group of folks on campus in general.
Yeah.
And they're going to remember when you gave in a little bit to that community partner, and they say, "Well, this one you allowed to."
They're going to hold you to it.
Strict, and you have to have good parameters in your mind and in general about where you're willing to go and where you're willing to ease and give a little ease.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to realize that they have long memories as well. So.
That is so true. Let's talk about training too, because you had mentioned another piece as you kind of think about requirements and indemnification is the training. So when you talk about training requirements for partners, what are you looking for? What are some of the things that you're embedding within that affiliation agreement?
Yeah, I felt like, and that's something that was super new for even our community partners that we were working with, our experiential learning partners, and our faculty that were putting together some of these programs, and our staff that were putting together some of these programs. So it was important for me, and for our contract, our general counsel to put in their training such that, for example, we have programs where some of our students will go into hospitals and observe from an ethics perspective some of the healthcare work of healthcare professionals. But when they go in those hospitals, we wanted our students to be able to know when they announce, code red or code blue or code black, in the hospital, so they know what to do. It wouldn't be like they'd see everybody running away and then they don't know where to go. So it's important for us to make certain that they receive as much training as necessary for whatever their role was going to be able to provide them so they're to be as successful and as safe as they can be when they're there. If you're working with a community partner that might be doing an after-school program for students and tutoring or just reading books to kids in a after-school daycare, those kinds of things. We want to make certain they realize what sort of protections they need. They may have some required state training that these volunteers would need to go through. Of course, background checking, et cetera, is part of that. But some of these trainings are more important that provide them with sort of the resources that the students and the volunteers will be able to utilize so they know what to do when they're on site.
Great.
Almost, and we almost made certain that they were doing it almost at the level of sort of, and I hate to say this because we really avoided this terminology, like an employee.
Yeah.
We want to make certain they are able to react the same way as anybody else would in a space. Conversely, if we had volunteers coming to Santa Clara, we wanted to make certain that they were trained and they knew what we were supposed to do should we have some event occur.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where we wanted to focus and make sure that was there.
That's great. Well, we've had many interactions, Sam. So this is just another example of how the Sam Florio approach gets to yes on some of these really complex but really mission-focused work. So I appreciate you sharing some insight and helping kind of other risk managers learn some tips and tricks of getting to yes on experiential programs and not being the wet blanket, because no risk manager wants to be the wet blanket on stuff like this. So
never know. It's been a pleasure. I'm so excited to have been part of Coffee with a Risk Manager. It's great.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Cheers from Coach Sam.
Yeah, there you go.
Take care.